our people, we are currently in Thailand.
In Koh Samui.
And Koh Samui, and Kimana is currently teaching a yoga retreat here for a group of Chinese.
Integrated Ayurveda and yoga.
And then today we're gonna do our first Instagram live to answer many questions that we've been receiving installed in Kimana's inboxes for so many years. Yeah. And then today we're gonna choose one specific topic that has been asked a lot to me, to Kimana, about Mercury retrogrades.
So, Mercury retrograde. So, I'm going to start a little bit about what the meaning of a planet is in Vedic astrology. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about Vedic astrology. It's an Indian system of astrology that I use. And I've been grown up amongst a family of holistic healers and educators, so I've learnt many different types of holistic healing, from naturopathic doctor medicine to Ayurvedic medicine to many types of massage and healing. And I very much like
to get massaged by him.
The Vedic healing arts, and their system of astrology is very deep. So a planet within the Vedic system of astrology represents something that holds us towards karma, holds us towards our actions. It teaches us about our role within community and how we work together as a team within this larger creation. Whatever actions we make get reflected back to us through these planets. They call them grahas, and it comes from the same word as to grasp or to grab, and these planets hold us towards our karma, our actions, and teach us about unity. So depending on which planet it is, it has a different domain of life, a different group of karma that it overviews, it overlooks. So Saturn, as an example, might overview hardship and thieving or something. So if you make an action where you steal from someone, this could be a Saturn domain of life, and therefore you'll need to pay back something towards Saturn. He'll hold you to that karma, and you'll experience Saturn-type experiences.
Like a bank. Can you explain about that bank analogy?
It's like a bank making deposits. These are different banks. The planets are like different banks in the world, and you're constantly seeing how many deposits and withdrawals do you have in the bank. So if you make actions, deposits, in positive ways towards these banks, then you have extra credit. If you make withdrawals in negative ways towards these banks, then it's going to teach us later on about that cycle of karma and unity and how we could work better for the team in the long run.
So one of the lessons is always pay your debt. Or karma will always find a way to catch you.
So when we're talking about Mercury here, it's one of these grahas, one of these grasps us that holds us to our karma. And its governance is very much around communication. It's about talking communication, the giving and receiving of communication through words. It's also about written communication and writing communication. It also governs the coordination of our body, so our ability to move. As I say coordination, it came out uncoordinated, partly because Mercury is now retrograde. So these aspects of life don't flow as easily as they may at other times. The coordination, technology, just this week I had a fault in my technology and I had to figure out how to do it and get around. Again, Mercury retrograde happens regularly.
Gladly we brought 3 laptops, so we have spare laptops.
It is also a tridoshic planet. There is no other tridoshic graha, tridoshic planet, except for Mercury.
What's tridoshic mean?
Tridoshic means that it has a little bit of all of the doshas. These are the language from Ayurveda, Vata, Pitta and Kapha. Most of the planets have 1 or maybe 2 doshas, but Mercury has all 3. And it means that it affects many different domains of life. Because it's to do with communication, it then starts to affect so many areas of life. And it also means that it's the most adaptable planet. As a tridoshic planet, Mercury will start to adapt to whoever it is that's around it and become more like them. It uses the intellect to communicate and be more like whatever are the people that are around it or its environment. So when we go through this Mercury retrograde, it affects all of those things that Mercury governs in our life, communication, other things. I'm going to talk about astronomy of what Mercury retrograde means in the sky. So basically, to understand it, the planets are moving in their orbits as they go around. And then depending on where the Earth is at certain times, Sun in the center, Earth moving around, there'll be a relationship between the Earth and Mercury. The easy way to understand it is that it's sort of like cars that are moving past, you know? And we're trying to look at what is the backdrop of stars behind the planet. So we look out in the sky and we see Mercury and it looks like it's moving forward through the sky normally. Here's Earth. We're now looking out, we see, and the same backdrop of stars. But when Earth starts getting close to Mercury, when it's close, all of a sudden the Earth might be overtaking Mercury. So even though they're moving in the same direction, now it will look like Mercury is moving backwards in relation to the speed of the Earth.
So it's not actually literally going backwards.
Mercury is not moving backwards, it's still moving in the same orbit around the Sun.
It's like theory of relatives.
But relative to us, relative to our eyes, it appears to be moving backwards for that period of time. So relative to us on Earth, the ability of that planet to exercise its domain of life, the things that it manages, and allow them to flow easily in our life is reduced or introverted. That's what a lot of astrologers will say, is that introverts those things. So communication, there might be challenges around it, and it will force us to think more internally before we communicate. Coordination with the body, there might be challenges around it. Maybe coordination of activities in a row don't happen as smoothly. So we have to be more introverted to allow that communication and coordination to flow easier in the outer life.
It's interesting because when it started of this Mercury retrograde, we actually just moved to a small island here in Thailand where internet is kind of sucks. So we can't really connect with the world. We kind of forced to look more inward to connect more with each other. And then it's just for the last couple of weeks that Kimana and I also, forced to look inward of our relationship, of our plan of the future. And then actually, I know some people would like, Mercury retrograde, oh my God, like they can become furious about it. But really, it's like I found that it's actually an opportunity for us to, have a time of the year where this is the best time to do that, to be more introverted, to be more, to contemplate more about lives, because that's where the energy is. Like imagine rowing about in in a river, and then the river has its own current, has its own flow. So whether you have two options, whether you want to follow the current, the flow, which is much easier, or you want to go against the flow because you have your own agenda, because you have your own individual desire or goal that you want to reach in life, which is not right or wrong, but one options will be easier, will be more smooth than going against it. So back against our personal experience about this Mercury retrograde and how we contemplate our own life, our plans for the future, we found that the last week has been actually great because we have, we are supported by the universe to look more inward of our lives.
And in that time, it's sort of like going from an introverted phase to an extroverted phase and taking advantage of how the planet is assisting that different time. So in this time, we've looked at communication, looked at the way in which we coordinate many things in our life, and think about ways we might restructure it, but we'll wait to actually do it until Mercury goes forward again.
Yeah. There was a time in the past where, for example, I didn't really, follow the flow of this Mercury retrograde of trying to be more introvert, and instead I'm like, oh, I need to do this, I need to get that, go here. In yoga or in Ayurveda, we call it rajasic. So we have desires that we want to go. And then, so what happened when I did that, when I'm really, go, instead of, and this is the time to be more contemplative, is that my laptop broke, my phone died. It's just like there's so many things that makes me being forced to look inside myself even more.
So it's great to understand the planet cycles and how they move, and it also influences when we choose specific starting dates. So the date that something starts is just like your birth date. It's the beginning point of something, and all of what's happening in the cosmos, and the planets, the grahas at that time, are releasing a certain energy matrix, and that influences and is the birth seed for that thing that's begun. So choosing a date to start something can be a very important thing with so many factors that come together. This is something that we put a lot of emphasis on for important group gatherings, such as events or weddings or other things like that. Or birth, but you can't control birth, I'm not into cesarean, let birth be natural,
But what is that? Your sister Mickey's baby, remember?
Yeah.
So there was 2 years ago, she just actually had a birth. It's not cesarean, but there was a time where
you want me to explain this one?
It's good.
We were choosing and looking at some specific dates, and it would have been more ideal that the baby came out on one date rather than another date. And basically, my family all walked to the top of a big mountain nearby the day before and said to the baby, "This is the time.
With the baby.
You need to come out tomorrow morning." We're talking to my sister's belly, and
everyone's
so up there,
funny.
up on the side of the mountain. We've walked all the way up there to do it, and talking to my sister's baby, and the next morning, still in the belly, and the next morning the baby came out, at the time window that was more ideal.
Yeah, it's I can't believe it. It was so amazing that, you can actually talk with the baby, and then the baby listen and like, okay, this is the time, the ideal time for me to be born into this world, and then there were sheep.
Yeah. It may be easier to choose an event date, or the day you move into your house, or the day you start a business contract with someone. Could be easier than the birth of the baby.
True.
So it's something that we do for our gatherings and events that come up in the future. We try to find what is the best date. There's always some dates that will lean in this direction. They're good for this and they're not so good for that. It's never like one date is best for everything. Yet we're looking at general group gatherings. So I'll talk a little bit about one that we have coming up.
Yeah.
Now, the Vitality Now, it's an Ayurvedic detox at my family's property in Australia. And at that time, on, what's the date?
22nd.
September 22nd, there is no planets that are retrograde. So all of the energy is moving forward in parts of life at that time, all the planets. And then we look at what's called the limbs of time. There's 5 limbs of time, and they relate to where the sun and the moon are positioned to each other. One influences the physical outcomes of an action, one the emotional outcomes, one the mental outcomes, one what the group dynamic is working together, and the other one is like the background within which all of this exists. So at this specific time, all 5 limbs are lined up in a way that's suitable for group gatherings. So it enhances those things. Then I'll talk a little bit about... What?
So I also want to mention that the previous event that we did in Jakarta, what day was that? Several weeks ago. Also followed this principle, and then the event was a huge success as well.
Great to bring people together on auspicious moments.
Also, I need to mention that anytime if you have a question, please write it down. Should we go into the question first?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me go through the questions. Diane asked, can you help elaborate about being more introverted? What's that even mean during the Mercury Retrograde of being more introverted?
So basically, between extrovert and introvert, extrovert means pushing our energy outwards and going out into the world, and then receiving energy through being in an outward state. Whereas introvert is about going more internal in our mind and body and receiving an energy exchange through something within ourself, our own private environment. So it means preparing away from the world. It could be in your home, in your bedroom, in your mind, with your eyes closed, preparing a process and going through it internally rather than preparing a process and actually doing it externally. An extrovert process, you might do it, you're out there in the world.
So probably if it's like in business work sense, it's more like the planning, the reviewing of your future plan rather than actually applying it and doing it in real life.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's your answer, Dion. And then that Dion say, that's why the electricity go down. Exactly.
The electricity goes out,
Yeah.
exactly. Mercury controls electricity.
As well.
Yeah.
Is that because
it's
of
the
the
fastest moving planet? Electricity is one of the fastest moving things that we have.
She arrived in Bali and the electricity just went down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which isn't so uncommon.
And then it's my friend say, Tony, last night my flight was delayed an hour, so that must be it. Yes, that's very, 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 very common for like delayed on transportation, cancellation. It's very common during this time.
Yeah.
What's the meaning of that? Not to travel between Mercury retrograde at all?
No, that when you travel, you're going to be forced to go through an introverted process, more likely.
So
you could choose an environment where it could be easier for the introverted process if you need to, or you can travel and surrender and go through an introverted process while you travel.
Okay. Because basically the learning process is just going to be very similar.
It's going to happen regardless,
Okay.
Yet you could make an environment that's more suited to it.
Okay. So when is this over, the retrograde? This will be over September 4th. I'm pretty sure, but I will double check.
Yeah, you want to double check that one.
Yeah. Okay, let me check.
Yeah.
You can just basically search Mercury retrograde. Pretty sure. Okay, while we load this, there's one more example for choosing a specific dates that Kimana can.
So the other date that's coming up this year is our 200-hour, once-long holistic yoga therapist training in Bali. The 5 limbs of time, for this one we're only able to get 3 on at that specific time. One, we went for the emotional outcome, and then we also looked at the Sunday that's there. The Sunday is great for group gatherings and leading people towards something, so it begins on that Sunday. And there's a special alignment of planets that's happening at that time. We have Venus and Jupiter together. Venus and Jupiter are the teaching planets. They're the Brahman caste planets, educator planets. So having them close together enables teaching to flow easier during that time. Venus is also in its own sign, so it's strong, and that'll bring that teaching energy into that holistic yoga therapist training.
So I think that's interesting about day, that different day also have its own energy. Like Sunday is the day of the god,
the sun,
which is the sun, which is the center of the universe, which is why in many religions,
center of our solar system.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, not universe. Sorry. Nighttime. Mercury retrograde. Yeah. Semua salahin aja Mercury. So, like.
Each of the days belongs to a different planet. From Sunday, Sun's day; Monday, the Moon's day; Tuesday, Mars's day; Wednesday, Mercury's day; Thursday, Jupiter's day; Friday, Venus's day; Saturday, Saturn's day.
A little bit tip there that I would like to share if you travel a lot is there are certain day that you know, it's can most likely there's delay in travel, which is
Tuesdays and Saturday
and Tuesday.
Yeah,
anyway,
generally hardest days for travel. Yet there's many other factors, not just those. Yeah.
Just one of the things.
Yeah.
Is Mercury retrograde affects to any zodiac sign? Of course, but that's a long thing to answer.
Yeah, because the zodiac signs, the Mercury retrograde will affect the most, will be any planets that are positioned in Virgo and Gemini. These are the 2 signs that Mercury rules. So if people have a lot of planets in those positions, it will affect them more. Zia has Moon in that position, and so yeah, it's different for every person, and this can get very complex depending on where your sun is, ascendant is, and all of the different
What's your
planets.
period
What
that
dasha
you're in.
periods you're in. It starts to get into a whole other thing when you get into individuality and prediction there.
So you can be on the waiting list for Kiman astrology reading.
34
in 1 year,
people.
probably.
Not the.
Okay, what happens if we just can't be introverted? Oh.
Then we'll go through some challenges in relation to forcing ourselves through extroversion, which will still force us to go, that didn't go as easy as I thought, and I'm going to have to go through rethinking the way in which I did that. So even if we can't be, right now I'm teaching an event, it's not an introverted process. I will go through challenges during the time of teaching that make me reflect, go introverted for a bit, and refine how I could have done that process better. Or even better, I go through a conscious introversion first. I look through all the things that I need to do, and I put in more introspection and planning so that when I need to extrovert, there's less chance of things going. I've already adapted and bonded with that cycle, so that even though I'm pushing extrovert during the cycle, I've balanced it to some degree first.
Okay, so I think that's all for today.
It's been great to talk with you all.
So if you have more questions about our events that is astrologically chosen in the auspicious time of the year, you can send us DM, or you can check the list of the schedules at Balance Live, www.balancelive.id/events. And then if you have questions, specific question that you are itching, burning for us to answer, you can also DM us, and then we will select based on the mostly frequent asked questions, or I don't know, the one that is most interesting. Make it interesting. Okay, thank you so much.
I hope to share with you in the future.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.